Are you ready for life-saving and life-changing hacks?
Was ist das?
20 minutes of the best top expert tips and hacks to make your life better. LifeHakx. Technology, business, multimedia, wellness and health, events, reviews, and more. LifeHakx. Every Sunday at 7 p.m. LifeHakx. This is Mary Collins from LifeHakx Media. And I have the pleasure of having Andrew Smyth from Baking Impossible on a LifeHakx with us today. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, Mary. I am great. Thank you. All the better for being here.
Thank you so much for being on our show. And I'm just going to give the audience a little bit of information about you. So Andrew is an aerospace engineer, baker, and presenter. As a finalist on the BAFTA-nominated Great British Bake Off in 2016, he grew a firm following his Northern Irish charm and outrageously engineered creations, including a gingerbread bridge and rotating geared pies. Andrew divides his time between researching future aircraft at Rolls-Royce and presenting his creation, The Art of Baconeering, exploring incredibly engineered, thoroughly edible food. He has written, produced, and performed live baconeering shows from around the UK and Ireland, and has partners including the Royal Institution, Cheltenham Science Festival, and the European Space Agency. As a presenter, Andrew has worked across multiple disciplines, live on stage, on TV, and online. He also has a cooking segment on ITV's Lorraine, appearing as an expert contributor, and shows on the Discovery Science Channel, which I'm super happy about because you've got Secrets of the Super Factories, BBC Christmas Kitchen, and History Channel, History Erased. I mean, Andrew, you have an entire collection of fantastic things that you've done, and it's extremely exciting now because Andrew is also on Baking Impossible, which I believe is your brainchild.
Yes, yeah. So I've had the pleasure. It's the only thing I've kind of been involved with from its very origins right the way through to filming. So yeah, you could say it's my baby.
Andrew has developed recipes and baking content for major international organizations on media campaigns. Clients include Warner Brothers, Sainsbury's, Lidl, and the British Council, including his YouTube series on the baconeering of space. He has even baked a rotating jet engine for none other than Prince William. And it was cake. So, I mean, with that, and also being there's too much. And also he's also the STEM ambassador that he takes and delivers talks in schools and universities, and has been a judge for the UK Young Engineer of the Year Awards. So, wow, is what I can say to you. How did you go from a degree at Cambridge University in aerospace engineering and go into baking?
It's
producing baking shows.
And quite the intro, Mary. Thank you for that. I'd always been a big eater. So when we were growing up, if anybody's ever been to Ireland, Northern Ireland, you'll know we love a tray bake. We love a cake. You know, if you come in, the first thing you'll be offered is a slice of something. So I grew up around sweet treats. But usually I was a bit unhelpful in those early days. So it was only when I really went away to university and had a kitchen of my own to get things wrong in that I started baking a little bit more. And, you know, there is a surprising overlap there. They say that cooking's an art, baking's a science. And I know so many scientifically minded friends who adore baking because it is a bit more process driven. There's a precision to it. There's a learning, there's a chemistry, which really, really appealed. And that's what kind of led me on the path to trying to improve myself at baking.
Okay. And when it came to the kind of educational or preparation process for getting into baking, how'd you fall into that? I mean, was that something you took courses for, or does it just run in the family?
Completely self-taught, to be honest. I mean, I would say credit where credit's due. My dad makes a killer shortbread. My mum makes a killer chocolate cake that she learned from her mum. So I kind of got the staples from family recipes. But when it came to patisserie, pastry, those kind of things, it was just reading up on a lot of theory, because when I applied to Bake Off, I was still kind of quite early on into learning baking. And I thought, well, I'm going to need to learn the theory. I'm going to need to practice and be ready to fail quickly, so that I can learn from it, take loads of notes. And that is exactly what I did before I went on Bake Off. And Bake Off for me was really a bit of a combination of a kind of crash course in media as well as a crash course in baking. What followed after that, this kind of more of the combining of baking and engineering into live shows and what I came to call baconeering, that just came from spotting those overlaps, the precision, the timing, the fact that there was so much problem solving when I was in the tent. And that was what led me to kind of create a live show called Baconeering in Space, where I use baked goods to illustrate some of the engineering principles that I work with day in, day out. My favorite example being the Baked Alaska, to explain how the space shuttle re-enters safely from orbit.
That's amazing. And I really hope, I'm so excited about it. I can barely speak about it because I think that science is so valuable and important for children and adults alike, because it's something that is fascinating, it's mysterious. And, the fact that you can make something like, food and show how something might work in a different atmosphere is wonderful. It really is inspirational. So now that you have these producer credits in your portfolio, how did you manage to juggle production with other aspects of your life, like with your job?
Yeah, my day job. I've got to keep my manager happy. So I work at Rolls-Royce as a future aircraft researcher in Derby here in the UK. And fortunately, after Bake Off, I realised quite quickly that there was a lot of these media and presenting opportunities coming my way, and I wondered whether I was going to have to take a sabbatical. Thankfully, there was an option to go flexible working. So for about 5 years now, I've worked 4 days a week. So I usually take Wednesdays off. They're my day for kind of creative outlets. And during the production phase and development, I was able to kind of dedicate a day a week plus weekends where necessary to doing that, and the company was amazingly supportive. And then when it came to chunkier filming periods, for instance, to film Baking Impossible last year, I just took a period of unpaid leave, which again, the company was really supportive about, because they could kind of see the STEM benefit, and that it was potentially a route to break down some stereotypes about engineering and kind of show the fun side, which sometimes as engineers, we don't talk about how fun our jobs are. We tend to get caught up in the how and the what, rather than, how enjoyable it is to actually solve those problems.
Exactly, the technical side. So tell us a bit more about Baking Impossible. I don't know how anyone could watch only one episode and not end up binging on it. And I actually had to be dragged out of the room to stop watching. And just for people who are listening, just as an example, the very first thing that catches your eye, if it's on the Netflix and it's the same picture, it's like a dress that looks like grapes made out of actual baking, like food. It's edible, everything about it, and it lights up, and it's got other pastries inside of it. It's just it blew my mind. I know that I would never be capable of doing these things, but I thought, gee, it would be fun just to watch someone else do it. So yeah, how did the idea of Baking Impossible come about, and then what was the process like? What do you wish you knew back then that you know now?
That's a great question. So it's very funny, the origin story. Nothing ever kind of happens in TV world as you think it might do. So in this case, I was doing my kind of live stage shows at science festivals in the UK and Ireland, and it caught the attention of some producers in the US who invited me over there. And initially, I thought it was just going to be to maybe do a few university presentations, do a few live shows, that kind of thing. But I ended up talking to more and more people about this TV idea I had, which was to do this kind of baconeering, but challenge people to make edible, incredible things that could actually perform a function. And the idea started to snowball. We talked to a production company, and we pitched it to Netflix. They ordered a series. We developed it for a year, and then we filmed it. And it's amazing because we realized quite early on that there might not be a lot of people who could do both the engineering and the baking competently from the off. So we decided to put together teams. So these teams had never met before. We've got 9 of them at the start of the series, and it's a professional baker and a professional engineer. And we pair them together and we set them these incredible edible challenges. So the first episode, for instance, they have to make an incredible sailboat. We give them a little rudder and a servo, but it not only has to look beautiful, but it actually has to go into the water, be stable, and sail down a channel. So it's unlike any other baking show where it's all about just taste and aesthetic. And we're actually kind of pushing material science into the edible realm. And the best thing is the teams have to learn from one another. And there are a load of delicious disasters along the way. So it was a complete blast to film, and I think it's a really joyful series that kind of explores the whimsical side of engineering as well.
Well, and also I'm just amazed that you didn't have more hissy fits and breakdowns because, engineers, you just imagine them as being control freaks and then bakers as control freaks. And I'm just like, I'm surprised it didn't turn into Jerry Springer or something.
Well,
I think you must have really had to go through a lot of like checking people.
Well, you throw people into a pressurized environment and, it is difficult. And it was fascinating for me because I've been on both sides of the equation now. So I've been a reality contestant on Bake Off and experienced, the highs, the lows, the long days, the pressure you're under, the kind of self-criticism. And then to suddenly be on the other side as a producer who was setting the challenges, interacting with the contestants, I think it gave me a bit of an empathetic viewpoint of what they were going through and how we could be at best, create a really good feel for the show. So we never punched down. The judges are never intentionally nasty. You see it on the show. The teams are really rooting for one another. So even when stuff goes wrong, it's very kind of supportive, which has always been my experience of both baking and engineering. So we kind of wanted to make a feel-good show that had a healthy competitive element to it. And I think I was able to help bring that to the table, having been on the other side of the coin.
I think your pleasant personality definitely has made a difference to the outcome of Baking Impossible.
Why work harder when you can work smarter and live better? LifeHakx.
Andrew, what are some of the life lessons that you wish you knew back then that you know now, whether it be about baking, producing, or aerospace engineering?
Oh, that's a tough one. And there's definitely a few themes that run across them. I'm thinking particularly when it comes to kind of engineering and getting into the media side of things. And the first one was after Bake Off, I kind of maybe expected stuff would be handed to me on a plate or opportunities would just present themselves. Whereas increasingly I've realized, there's an element of luck involved in a lot of these things, but you've also got to make your own luck. You've got to, if you've got ideas, you've got to make those opportunities for yourself and be ready for the 9 no's that you might get, but then the 1 yes. And that was exactly what happened with this show. For a number of years, I've pitched some engineering concepts. You think you're getting somewhere and then it goes nowhere. That is quite often the way things go in media land, and you've got to be quite persistent. But also, I think that's true in life. In engineering, you've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and there's a resilience to that. And also just being patient. I think quite often we kind of expect instant gratification. And, from the start to end of this process, I started originally talking about this back in 2018. So, it was a 3-year journey to get this made. So sometimes good things are worth the wait, and knowing when to be patient and when to kind of just progress stuff at a good pace rather than rushing things is something that I'm quite cognizant of now. So, the projects that might be coming along, I know they might be 2023 or 2024, but I'm fine with that. I know I can kind of schedule those out, and I'm not trying to anxiously pursue them in the short term. Last thing that just springs to mind is just imposter syndrome. I'm sure it's something that a lot of your listeners are familiar with. Feeling like you're the only one in the room who doesn't know what they're talking about, or the self-doubt and internal critique saying that you shouldn't pursue something or you shouldn't share your thoughts with the room. And that's something I've had to really work on, especially being a judge on this show too, because I'm meant to be kind of the voice of authority on the show, but those little goblins and gremlins kind of chisel away. And you've just got to kind of believe in yourself, know your worth, and that you're qualified to be there, and that quite often a lot of other people are feeling the same thing. And if the last few years of politics have taught me anything, it's just if certain people in power can do it, then I can absolutely, judge a show that I came up with the concept for. So that's kind of buoyed me. If they don't have the imposter syndrome, why should I?
No, that's wonderful. Those are wonderful hacks. And you're right. There's actually more untalented people, especially in the music industry, who are making it, and they're doing everything because they're just determined and they're stubborn and they won't take no for an answer. So I think even I can't remember which musician it was. I won't say Britney Spears because I don't think it was her, but it was one of them that tried she tried country music and rock and roll and R&B, and it was only like on the 5th try or the 6th try that they kind of found something that worked for her sound and her look and whatever, and it was like that. And I think people just assume that they just go in and they just find themselves in a particular thing. And even with media, it's changing every day. I started off as a journalist, writing. and behind the scenes, and here I am on radio. It is so strange how things develop. And like you said, it's just perseverance and, a bit of luck, but making the luck by being determined and pushing through.
Absolutely. And, you know, you see from an outside perspective, you know, even if somebody looked at my career today, they might just see the successes. They don't see all the failures that kind of prefaced all the successes within there. And there were so many failures that went in there, and failed pitches and ideas that got so far and then got completely binned and will never see the light of day. So you've just got to remember, when you're looking at other people's, you know, progression or what they're doing, you're only seeing half the story. And if you compare your own life to theirs, you're not comparing like for like.
You're brilliant. You could be, your next one could be counseling as well. You're fantastic stuff.
I just say this as much to myself as anybody else. One of my worst traits is just kind of critiquing and comparing myself to kind of other peers.
Well, with that, what would you recommend people who are considering, say, a career change or an enhancement, you know, how to get started?
It's good. I think I'm still working that one out, to be honest, Mary. I decided after Bake Off that I definitely wanted to get into engineering presenting. I wanted to do more stuff in the media. And initially, I really struggled to reconcile that with training as an engineer and having kind of built up a bit of a career in the industry. So I guess I'm now pursuing what you'd call a braided career, which is kind of two strands at the same time, kind of interwoven. Initially, I think I kidded myself into thinking I could pursue both of those at the same time. In hindsight, I think you've got to be honest with yourself. If your passions lie somewhere and your motivation is on one of those, which for me was, you know, the media side of things, my engineering career hasn't kind of progressed since. I'm at a very comfortable point. I love my work, but I think it is a struggle to pour energy into two things simultaneously. So you've got to be quite honest with yourself where you kind of distribute those passions. So I've kind of made my peace with the fact that, you know, some of my peers are going into leadership roles in engineering. To enable me to have the flexibility and life balance that I want to, I've kind of got to put previously what were my big career ambitions maybe to the side, because I'm now focusing on what I want to do in kind of media and presenting work. And it's tricky, I'd say, and you've got to work it out. And having a mentor, I have a great mentor in work, is really important, to have kind of an external perspective or someone who's got a different background to you, just who can be a sounding board. I find really useful.
That is those are all wonderful ideas and hacks, because like you said, there's too many people who they burn out way too quickly because they're trying to do too many things at one time. And then the passion, it gets overwhelmed with tiredness, you know, or frustration and anxiety. So, you know, that's it. Follow the one that you're most passionate about. If it gives you the energy that you need, and have that sounding board. That's also really great. Someone that says no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, just don't. And also, depending on your instinct on it, you know, if you still feel like you need to pursue, then I guess you go ahead and pursue. So speaking of which, what do you have anything in the bag, in the baking bag that's coming up soon, or?
Oh, the baking bag. I mean,
or any of them, any of your projects that are on the horizon.
There's a lot of projects in the work at the moment. I'm working on a very fun project, which is all to do with bedtime stories. It's with a team of fantastic UK-based engineers. We're looking at doing a bedtime stories book for really young engineers, which is fantastic and completely aligns with my, you know, ambition to break down the stereotypes around engineering. And really, I'm pursuing. I'd love to be the host of kind of an engineering primetime series. You know, for me growing up, it was always kind of maybe a bit one note, the stuff of engineering that I saw. And in my career, you know, nobody is 100% interested in engineering. We're all fully rounded people who have other interests. But so often our portrayal, or even when we go into schools, all we talk about is engineering, rather than saying, this is who I am as a person. These are my interests. Engineering is a part of what makes me who I am. But, you know, that can work for you too. I don't just work all day at a computer, go home and dream about engineering. I have a life that's made up of other things. So that's kind of what I want to share and encourage young people to consider a career that's given me so much and stirred my curiosity up about the world and how I see the world.
Wonderful. Andrew. We're really going to be looking forward to telling everyone to go and look on Netflix and or YouTube or wherever you can find it once it's available in other places. Check out Baking Impossible and check out Andrew's site because he has all his other links there as well, including the YouTube series Bakeneering of Space. So his main website is cakesmyth.com, and that's with a YTH instead of an ITH, just like on LifeHakx, where all the links will be available, and that's LifeHakx with a K and an X on Radio X. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mary. Great to talk to you.
Top expert tips and hacks to make your life better. LifeHakx. Technology, business, multimedia, wellness and health, events, reviews, and more. LifeHakx. LifeHakx.com. That's with a K and an X on Radio X.